Welcome back. You're listening to The Voice of Russia with me, Scott Craig, and welcome to Meet the Media, where each week I look at how some of the major news stories and events are being covered in the Russian media. This week I'm pleased to be joined in the studio by Dmitry Elovsky from TV Dozhd, Anton Volsky from NTV, and returning to Meet the Media, I'm pleased to have back Viktor Balagadde from Kommersant UK. Let's begin with the perennial story, which is the elections coming up, specifically the opposition movements and how they're being portrayed in the media. Anton, perhaps I can start with you. How are, broadly speaking, some of these opposition leaders being treated in the Russian media?
Well, it depends on who you call the opposition leaders. There are far left opposition leaders who probably would not ever appear on NTV or any federal TV stations. But recently they were allowed to take part in these shows because I believe the TV bosses were allowed to. The situation is changing before the election, but many people in Russia, they got scared that after the election, things will get worse. And these opposition leaders would not be able to present themselves on any media.
I mean, is it true to say that there has been relaxation in terms of the opposition figures being allowed onto television? I mean, if we take someone like Navalny, for example, Alexei Navalny, for example, I mean, is he seen often on Russian television?
No, as for Navalny, he's out of any limits, so he could not be seen even on MTV, not NTV, but musical TV. Recently, the program of Ksenia Sobchak on MTV was closed, as far as we know, only because she wanted to invite Navalny. So he is the kind of leader who will not be able probably to appear on any media show.
And what kind of opposition figures are actually we seeing on Russian television?
Well, there are quite medium, I would say, opposition leaders, as Nemtsov, one of them, probably. There are persons who the power people would be able to talk to. So they wouldn't be able to talk to Navalny since he's extremely critical to the Putin regime. As for others, it's possible. And even Medvedev told that he's going to meet next week with opposition which is not presented in parliament. So that could... I doubt that they will invite Navalny, but definitely Nemtsov will be there. As for relaxation in politics, yes, it seems like the pressure valve was opened, and they're trying to take off the pressure in the society. That's why they allowed this opposition leader to appear on television.
Dmitry Elovsky, you represent TV Dozhd, which has been widely described as essentially an oppositional TV channel. Is that a fair description?
No, I don't think so. We are not saying that we are opposition TV channel or we are like liberal TV channel, as some people say about us. We just try to bring some other stories to people, some stories that are not widely covered by mainstream media. And we are trying to get our audience by some news that they look for, but they can't find on big TV screens, on TV screens of federal TV channels. So I think these people like to watch us, and they are our main audience.
So in terms of how you approach the opposition and the opposition protests that we've seen recently in Russia, editorially speaking, how have you struck a balance with that?
It's pretty difficult to find a balance in covering that stories. Recently there were I think two quite big demonstrations in Moscow. One was a march from Oktyabrskaya metro station to Bolotnaya Square, and people who were opposite the current government gathered there. The other one was on Poklonnaya Gora, I think, and that was the place where supporters of Putin and of the current regime gathered. So we tried to cover both of these events because both of them are kind of very important, and they influence very much the life of the city of Moscow and life of people who live in Russia. So we try to find a balance, and it's sometimes it gets quite difficult because we always try to get the experts from both both sides in our studio to make them represent their own point of view. But people from United Russia are not very much eager to come to our studio and to hold
Why?
some
Because of
discussions.
its reputation as oppositional.
They are saying that we are not that big TV channel, and we, well, that's true. That's fair enough. I mean, because we cannot compete with big major TV channels, with federal TV channels, and so they say that they prefer to go to Vesti TV channel or Первый TV channel to speak with the anchors over there. So they just don't want to waste their time. But I mean, the community, our audience is also very important. Maybe it is not that vast, it's not that big, but these are also people who are making votes and who are making decisions. So that's kind of difficult question to solve, because the opposition leaders, they always come to us and they are always eager to get the commands to give us interviews. But it gets sometimes really hard when it goes to the power people.
And in terms of opposition figures, have you had Navalny on your channel?
I think we had him, but quite a long time ago. And Navalny is... it was very hard to get his attention, actually, because Nemtsov and other Ryzhkov, for instance, they are always happy to come to us. But Navalny refused us, actually, a number of times, and that was kind of suspicious. But finally we got an interview with him, and that was a big success for us.
Viktor, Balagadde, I mean, in terms of the opposition, there is this kind of almost fixation, in a sense, with figures like Navalny. I mean, he has obviously drawn quite a lot of attention, but actually the opposition protests, the opposition movement is actually much wider than that. I mean, we're talking about people like Ryzhkov, Mironov, etc. It's a much wider pool.
Yes, it is, yes.
And in terms of the coverage of that, is the coverage reflective of the fact that actually the opposition is quite a complex, organic thing?
Well, no, I don't think so, that the Russian media covers the whole opposition just the way the opposition is there. And, well, first of all, you have to look at it realistically and understand that there are some oppositional leaders, but they will never get elected. At least they will never get elected as presidents of Russia, because they've been there for years and years. They've been there for several decades, to be precise. Well, I'm talking about figures like Zhirinovsky and Zyuganov. And these are oppositional leaders, but they are non-electable ones, and those are the kind of politicians who get air, and I mean they get access to air, and they get access to the TV stations and to the magazines and newspapers and so on. And but when it comes to new faces which appeared on the political scene in the last, let's say, year or two, and first of all, of course, we are speaking here about Alexei Navalny, and he is very popular. He's very popular among a certain type of society, a certain layer of a society, I would say, maybe those young generation which is spending a lot of time online and reading his blogs, which are extremely popular in Russia. And these are the people, these are the oppositional leaders I understand the current regime is aware of, and they're quite scared of them, and that's why they don't get any access to the media. And I would like to challenge what Dmitry said. I think TV Rain actually is a channel, probably one of the few medias which chose a specific political approach to everything what's happening now in Russia. And I remember there was a time in December when TV Rain added to its logo the white ribbon as a symbol of a protest. So TV Rain was probably one of those medias which officially stood on a certain side, and they supported a certain side of the political battle which is happening on the Russian political scene at the moment. So I wouldn't say that they did have a huge, well, maybe of course as any media they want to give an objective, they want to show an objective picture, but they, if you look at the politicians which were invited, and even at the personal approach which TV presenters did not hesitate in showing, I wouldn't say that TV Rain is someone who was trying to show both of the sides.
Actually, I want to add, I think that the problem is that there are no fair media and objective media in Russia now, because there are only TV channels or newspapers who are maybe trying to, but the society and the media society is divided strictly on those who stand for the Putin regime and United Russia Party, and those who stand opposite. There is nobody in the middle. That's a problem.
May I say that the white ribbon that you've mentioned, Viktor, on our logo was the sign of not of our supporting the protest movement, but the sign of our live coverage of all the events that were taking place on that day. That was the sign that you can watch all the events that are going in Moscow and in other big cities at that day's live on our TV channel. And some of our anchors and presenters and correspondents were also wearing white ribbon, but that was their own position. And our bosses, they just said that we are not in a position to tell people what to wear and what color the ribbon should be. So that was very, very personal thing. I mean,
well, actually, I was discussing this with one of the TV presenters from the first channel, from the Первый Канал, the first main state channel in Russia, and she was telling me, I mean, she'd been working there for over 10 years, and she said that this time, strange enough, the bosses and the management of the first channel say that they can go and participate on the meetings, and they can go to the demonstrations and do what they want. But during the working hours, they still have to abide to the to the corporate rule they have on the TV channel, and to make sure that there are no any white ribbons wore in front of the camera, and just to kind of try to be fair and to strike and to cover both of the sides. So, by the fact that the TV managers allow you to show your support of a position when you are in front of a camera, you are already, I think, kind of trying to influence your audience. But it's great. I think it is great that we have a channel like TV Rain which can show, because we are lacking this kind of, we are lacking this coverage.
That's actually what I was going to ask. Is there necessarily anything wrong? I mean, they're sort of being quite upfront about it, I suppose.
I think there is nothing very much opposition in a white ribbon, because as far as I know, even people from United Russia some of them supported the white ribbon movement, because the main aim of the movement is the fair elections. And those people who are for Putin and who are smart enough, actually, they would also support the idea of fair and of transparent elections. So, I mean, that's nothing to talk about opposition. That's about just fair elections.
Just a reminder, you're listening to Meet the Media on The Voice of Russia with me, Scott Craig. This week I'm speaking with Dmitry Elovsky, Anton Volsky and Viktor Balagadde about opposition protest movements in Russia. You mentioned Vladimir Putin there, and I wanted to move on to also talking about not only portrayals of the opposition, but portrayals of Putin personally. On NTV, there is going to be the Putin Russia and the West series, which was screened recently in the UK on the BBC. Anton, what do you think the reaction to that might be?
Well, first, I think that the BBC film is not too. You cannot call it opposition or very critical. It was very fair. Some people even think that it was some kind of pro-Putin. Only in the last probably 15 seconds, there was an idea that you can manage as anti-Putin. The question was, do you need this kind of leader for another 12 years? But in the situation we have now in Russian media, that film would be the most critical to Putin film ever shown in Russia. So whatever you say here, whatever the impression of this movie is here in London, in the UK, or throughout the world, in Russia, that will be the most straightforward movie.
Do you think it will actually cause a splash when it's shown?
It will, no doubt it will. And unfortunately, it's not the Russian movie.
Viktor, I mean, not to sort of dwell too much on this one particular film, but I mean, if something like Putin Russia in the West is shown on Russian television, freely available, everyone can see it, and it does create this splash, does that in any way sort of indicate that the media treatment of Mr. Putin is changing?
No, I don't think the media treatment of Mr. Putin is changing. There were, of course, some kind of a thaw. I don't know. There is what we had in the 60s in Soviet Union and what is happening now. Maybe there is some kind of a relaxation of the mood and of the atmosphere in the media. But I don't think that you can say that the Russian media is now more free than it used to be, let's say, a year ago. No, that is not true. And the fact that this film is shown on the Russian TV, I mean, it's just, as very well Anton put it, it's a very moderate movie. It's the movie which doesn't really take any of the sides. It is very good for the Russian audience. And I think that was the political regime. That's what they think, that if they're going to show such a well-balanced movie shot by Westerners,